June 26th is the anniversary date of the signing of the Charter of the United Nations in San Francisco in 1945. While UN Day is usually celebrated on October 24th, when the UN Charter came into force after the ratification by states, and especially the needed ratification by the 5 permanent members of the proposed Security Council, it was on June 26th that the Charter was presented to the world. Thus, it is useful, this June 26th, to look at the ground covered and at the road ahead. Dag Hammarskjöld wrote that the United Nations was the beginning of an organic process through which the diversity of peoples and their governments are struggling to find common ground upon which they can live together in the one world which has been thrust upon us before we were ready. As the incoming Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, recently re-elected for a second mandate, said that in times of insecurity, when people feel uncertain about their future, when anxieties and fears are promoted and exploited by political populists, old-fashioned nationalists, or religious fundamentalists, the success of the UN and the international community lies in our common commitment to our common values. Basically, the function of the UN is to create consensus, in other words, being of one mind, on crucial world issues. Such consensus building is slow, and it is done by repeating endlessly, in resolutions of the General Assembly and other UN bodies, year after year, the same idea until it becomes commonplace. Slowly, national governments align their policies upon this common core as non-governmental organizations and the media take up the issue, sometimes a little ahead of governments and sometimes only later. Since 1945, there have been 5 major issues which have moved from the stage of the ideas of a few to become common policy, the one mind of the UN. This is about one idea per decade, although often the idea was presented early, and it took more than one decade to build consensus. I see the 5 issues on which one mind was formed as follows. 1. Direct colonialism should end. From the idea of a few in 1945 until the mid-1960s, the idea grew that colonial administration had ended its usefulness as a form of government. The end of direct colonialism owes much to the UN system, though, of course, inequality and domination, signs of colonial status, have not been overcome. 2. Apartheid was a bad structure for South Africa and for other countries in Southern Africa tempted by similar structures of racial division. This idea was a theme of many resolutions and speeches. Slowly, the image of a multiracial and multicultural society took hold, encouraged by enlightened leadership at the national level in South Africa. 3. There are basic human rights, and these should be respected. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the UN General Assembly on December 10, 1948, the Magna Carta for all humanity. The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the preamble to the UN Charter are the 2 inspirational texts likely to last as guides for the future. 4. Closely related to the idea of human rights, but needing a special effort at consensus building, is the idea that women are equal to men and should be so treated. Although the idea is obvious, both the UN and national governments have found it difficult to put it into place. 5. The ecological balance of the world is in danger and needs remedial action. The ecological efforts of the UN began in 1971 and are enshrined in the Covenant with Nature, a text of equal importance to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, although not as well known. Current efforts to limit global warming are growing out of this basic ecological awareness. Now there is a 6th idea developing, increasingly articulated but not yet manifested as consensus. The idea is that there is a relationship between security, development, and human rights. It is clear that security cannot be enjoyed without development, that development cannot be enjoyed without security, and neither can be enjoyed without respect for human rights, as stated by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Antonio Guterres has stressed the same theme. The UN faces new challenges in ensuring peace and security, promoting sustainable development, protecting human rights, and delivering humanitarian aid. The UN is uniquely placed to connect the dots to overcome these challenges. To succeed, it must further strengthen the nexus between peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights policies, a holistic approach to the mutually reinforcing linkages between its three pillars. We must not underestimate the time and difficulty that it takes to build consensus within the UN, but I believe that a holistic approach to global challenges is a meaningful approach for more and more governments and non-governmental organizations.